I think that was one of the biggest things for me growing up here and then moving on and doing what I'm doing now is it took me a long time to realize and really assure myself that, creating can be more than just a hobby or it can be more than just a passion. But if you have a story to tell and you have passion behind that, it can be so much more fulfilling than that. And as long as you're willing to put in some work and you want to tell your story, there's somebody who absolutely wants to listen, and that the joy that you get from creating that art can also be shared in other people, and it can be found in other people that way.
Yeah. Welcome to the Americus podcast, where we pursue what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. I'm your host, John Schroeder, and today I am joined by my new friend, Sam Pinnell. Sam, she is a photographer behind Sam's Grace Snaps, who captures stories, senior portraits, engagements, wedding celebrations. Well, we call those moments that matter for us. And so I'm excited to have Sam here with me to hear a perspective that's hopeful, rooted in some rural Southwest Georgia time. And so very, very thankful for her to come on the podcast. She drove in for this podcast, so I'm very, very thankful for her. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met Sam, actually. I was in Cafe Campesino, and there's this little back area where there's some couches and some great just artwork. And so I'm just sitting back there by myself, and Sam walks in, never seen her before, and she's looking at the artwork. And so I was always intrigued by it. So I just struck up a conversation with Sam, and she goes, actually, I said, do you like the paintings and the artwork? And she goes, that's actually mine. And you pointed out your name, and I was like, what? This is awesome. So that's how I got a first chance to meet you and talk to you. So we had a really great conversation, talked a little bit about the podcast, and you were just so ready to say, yeah, I would love to be a part of what you're doing here. So Sam, listen, if people don't know you, if you're new to the area, Sam has an amazing story. So Sam, tell us a little bit about kind of who you are. Again, this is about neighboring. So how do we have conversations with new people? So this is our second conversation. And so tell us a little bit about who you are growing up in Americus, Georgia.
Well, hi, I'm Sam. Yeah, I'm Americus native, born and raised here. I kind of grew up in the comforts of small town life and enjoying the community around here. I went to school locally, went off to school for college in Kennesaw State. Mm-hmm. So I have always considered myself to be a pretty creative person. And I think my life in Americus was very much the cause of that. And my creativity is very rooted in the things that I've learned here, the person I grew to be because of being in the area. I paint, I take photos. That's like my main passion right now that I'm trying to develop. And so I hope that I can be a good neighbor, be a good friend, be a good person by learning how to best tell those stories and hear other people's stories through that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about Americus that I notice, but I don't really get a chance to hear much about, is the idea of how art has been so influential here. So can you tell me a little bit about growing up here and just recognizing the history of art here in Americus and how that inspired you to take something on like that for yourself?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing to consider when we're talking about like what we notice as an impact that art has on our community is how large a category art can be. And art can be genuinely anything. Food can be art. People can create art in so many different kinds of ways. For me specifically, like in the coffee shop, coffee can be art. And anything that you find a passion in and that you feel like you can use to create a positive change or a positive message, I think that can always be considered to be art. Kind of got away from
No, that's great.
My train of thought there.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anybody that was an artist or someone that you knew that you kind of watched in Americus and said, "Oh, that's really cool," or maybe a particular artwork that just caught your attention as a young just kind of growing up and going, wow, that's awesome.
It's relatively new, but it's here downtown. All the butterfly murals on the side of what used to be the location for Cafe Campesino. That popping up was something really amazing. I think it just brought so much light and so much color to downtown. And I feel like that really attracted people, and it made the atmosphere of downtown a lot more approachable, especially for young people, which I think is a huge, huge part of keeping Americus thriving, especially.
Yeah. Now, I know that I know a little bit about Kennesaw, where you're at right now. I know that it's a beautiful place. A lot of people want to go there. I don't know the demographics or how big the city is or the county is. Do you kind of know some of that? I mean, is it comparable to Americus or?
Kennesaw is definitely much bigger than Americus. I know the college itself has about 40,000 students, but a lot of them are online. So I would say probably half of them are online. It's a very compact campus. I would compare it more to the size of like Macon or Warner Robins, really. So it's a bit bigger, but there's a lot of smaller communities around it that I would compare to Americus.
Yeah. So growing up in Americus, when was your first time kind of outside more of the small rural town of Americus?
I would say going to college specifically, I toured a lot of colleges all over the state, and I think I went back and toured Kennesaw like 3 times.
Yeah.
I kind of just felt like a draw to it, and I liked being far enough away from Atlanta that I could decide if I wanted to go there or not and be a little separated from that, where I still wanted to feel like I was connected to a community of people or a smaller space. And I think a lot of that had to do with growing up here. But it was like a step up where I could meet more people, create more connections, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So stepping into a larger area and then again, coming from a smaller town, what was that experience like for you?
It made me realize how isolated small towns can be. Things are a lot more connected when you grow into a bigger community or are in a more populated area, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't consider Americus to be that small based on some of the other communities around here, but it's definitely small in comparison. So it's a big step, but it's a positive change. I think it's great to experience at least once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that I love about Americus is the influence that Habitat for Humanity had on a small town, just bringing so many diverse people from all over the globe to come work here.
Absolutely.
For the international aspect of it. And so now all these families are living here still 20, 30, 40 years later. And but you're in a small town, right? Small town, rural Georgia. So it's a really cool aspect. But yeah, as soon as you kind of step outside, you recognize that you don't feel as comfortable because you have to learn different cultures, right? And so yeah, it's a great aspect, obviously.
Yeah, I think also with America specifically, we're in a lucky position with Habitat, especially where there's a lot of diversity here. There's of course a super rich history in Americus itself and the surrounding areas, but whenever you step out of that, you realize how tight-knit that community can be. And like a lot of times, at least people that I've spoken to around my age that go off to college, leaving a small town like this, is you don't realize just how many people are here in your corner when you step away and you're far geographically, but then also far like socially from those people. And it can be kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some things you say scary? What are some things that kind of cause that more specifically?
I think just whenever you step away into that new either part of life or like new area, it can feel very alone, or you can feel very alone sometimes. Yeah. And like for me, I only knew like 1 or 2 people that grew up around here that were at school up there. So for a long time, I was very homesick and missing just kind of the small town feel and the people, like going into a coffee shop and most likely going to see someone versus you never know if that's going to happen or not. More likely not.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're far away from home.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I've noticed too, is that, people that come here from larger cities, they're just like, man, everybody kind of knows who you are.
Yes.
It's a really cool feeling. You can know thousands of people in a big city and yet not see them one time throughout the week. It's just like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you talk about artwork. It's really, really a passion of yours. Why specifically taking photos? Why did you go that route? What attracted you to that?
I think it fosters a really large respect for special moments in people's life where, it can be a really big responsibility if someone's trusting you to document that for them in the way that they're going to experience it, of like, a wedding, for instance, of the bride and the groom as well, and their entire families will spend months and months and months planning out this day so that it's something that they can treasure and remember forever. And you're tasked with like making sure that is communicated and that story is told through those photos in the way that they really want to remember it.
Yeah.
So it's a huge challenge, but it's also really, really gratifying. And it feels really special to be able to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting because you're trying to tell that story that they hope, there's a lot of conversations that you're saying, all right, what do you want me to capture? I want to make sure that this is the story that you want other people to see through, my camera. So it's a really important moment in everyone's lives. I love that. How difficult is that sometimes to capture those moments?
I think I would
you
say
ever get nervous is what I'm asking.
Oh, very much. Yeah. My first wedding was actually, I came back here to Ellaville to document one. And I was so incredibly nervous just because it feels like such a huge task. It feels like you're stepping out of your depth into something because being a little bit newer in that field, everything is going to be brand new. Everything's going to be out of the box for me or out of my comfort zone. But it's also really, really helpful because then once I get that down, I'm like, okay, I feel way better. I feel ready to take another step and try that again. And it can be addicting to try new things.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first camera was when you were like, getting a little bit more serious about it? You're like, hey, I want to see if this is something I can grow in.
I got my first camera. Well, my very first camera. I don't remember how old I was. It was a little pink digital Vivitar camera. I didn't even have an SD card to put in it. So it would only take one picture at a time and then it would erase if I wanted to take another one. But over on Lee Street where we used to live, I got my first real camera, like nice camera when I was 16 for my 16th birthday. Nice. It was a Canon Rebel, I think a T6i. And I was just taking pictures of all sorts of fun things. And over the next year or two, I set up some little photo shoots with my friends. Started doing band photography whenever I finished high school. And that was really, really fun. I enjoyed the atmosphere and the liveliness and capturing all those moments. And then it was actually my dad that encouraged me to pick it back up and do more. I'd been taking some wildlife photos here and there, but nothing that serious because I was trying to focus on school. Finished with school, I was like, I feel like I haven't locked in on really what I wanted to pursue passion-wise. And so I was talking to my dad about it a little bit more, and we got to talking about photography. And eventually I was like, okay, I think I want to do it. Let's just try. And so I started doing some free stuff and things for fun. And then it's just kind of grown from there. So
yeah. Was there another path that you were thinking about taking as far as career, or were you pretty settled on kind of the art photography?
Well, I went to school for English. When I started college, I was really hoping to go down the writing path. I was really unsure about specifically which direction I wanted to go, but I've always known that I'm a very creative person. And if I was doing something where I didn't feel like I could be creative, I probably wouldn't be super happy there. Considered HR for a while, but I just kept falling back into creative things. So I've tried to take the pressure off myself. It's really hard when there's a lot of people in your ear saying, you got to figure it out. But really it's what's going to make you happiest at the end of the day. Yeah.
So how does English and artwork work hand in hand for you?
I think it's the storytelling for me that makes me happy with all of those, and where I feel like those two things really marry each other is that there's in every single situation, every single job you have, or every single person you meet, there's always a story that can be told, or there's always a way to grow from a conversation you may have or a person you may meet, and there's always going to be something there. And I think in both English writing specifically, or even studying literature, past writing, that you can always find some sort of connection that no one's noticed before. You can find some sort of story or some kind of meaning that an author or a photographer or an artist or any kind of creative person wanted to get across. And they may not have even known at the time that they wanted to tell that story, but it may speak to you specifically just because of who you are.
Yeah. So I'm interested in maybe even some of the training aspects, nowadays, I mean, with YouTube tutorials and stuff, like where do you develop your growth for, at least specifically with, taking photos and stuff?
I would consider myself mostly self-taught, with the help of some internet friends and videos and all that. But I think it's just an overall learning curve of talking to people who have already done it, what's their experience. And the more I've gotten into it, the more I realize like everybody's figuring it out on their own, even those who have had formal training. And I don't mean that to discredit formal training at all, but
well, when you love something, you're constantly learning it,
absolutely.
right? You always feel like you could get a little bit better. You know? Some of the best leaders that I've ever met, they're like, I'm reading this leadership book. I'm like, why another one? We just love learning, you know? So absolutely. Did you ever get a chance to, before you started off, did you get a chance to go with some other photographers and just kind of watch them and kind of help with them? Or did you just step right into it?
I kind of jumped right into it. I had spoken to some photographers just asking for tips and tricks, advice, that sort of thing. I got some really amazing advice from Modern Studios before a really big school job that I just did. So, you know, talking to people in your creative community can always be a huge, huge help for that. At least it was for me. Yeah. And then I kind of just jumped right in the deep end and figured it out as I go.
Now, creative community, do you mean physical people that you know, but online community? Like, where do you find community for someone that's looking into something like this?
I would say it's a combination of both. If there are people that you know that share those passions and that create in the same way as you, I would say it's always beneficial to talk to those people. If someone's really got good intentions for friendships, for relationships, like professional and casual, I would say they're always going to give you genuine advice. I think a lot of the fear, especially that I've come across in the online community with photographers, is people worrying like, oh, nobody's going to want to share the secret because it's such an oversaturated market or these are your competition. But I think if you're finding the right people, a lot of times they're going to give you genuine advice because they want you to succeed on your own. And so there's that aspect of it. And then online, I would just say like, with the internet now, it's going to feed you content of exactly what you are looking for. So, of course, you're going to run into people online and you're going to run into different common areas or forums and communities where people can give advice to each other. So there's oftentimes like a random post that I'll come across if it's somebody asking a question that I happen to know the answer to, and I'm happy to share that. And then it can be the other way around as well. So you can build a lot of connections that way, or at least find help if you need it.
Absolutely. All right. Do you remember kind of either the first photo or group of photos or event that you were really, really proud of? Like that you said, all right, this is it. This is great.
Oh, that's really hard because I love all the work that I do. And I think there's been multiple times that's happened for me. I took an educational trip to the Galapagos Islands when I was in high school, and I did a lot of wildlife photography there. And I was just like, I would say unusually proud of those photos because they just really felt like vibrant and real and like I was capturing important things. And I got to take pictures of some of the most amazing wildlife that I will probably never encounter again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that really sparked my interest back into it. And that's why I started picking the camera back up. And then once I started to take it seriously about 9 or 10 months ago, I did a graduation shoot, and it was a style that I had never really tried before. We did like a warmer, more retro shoot, and I had a lot of fun editing that, and the pictures just turned out so amazing. So I was really, really happy with the senior session for that one.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm always interested too. I mean, we're talking about just kind of your experiences getting out. And one of the things I love about this podcast is it kind of lets people kind of look in, right? So, you know, when you go to Kennesaw and you spend time and you meet new people and they say, hey, where are you from? And you say Americus, and they go, yeah, America. And you're like, no,
right,
Americus, Georgia. How do you describe this small rural town to people that have never been here?
Well, usually I say, well, you know who Jimmy Carter is. We're right up the road. That's geographically, that's the closest I can get someone. But I really just kind of share who I am and how the town has impacted me. If I'm going to show someone Americus, the first place I'm going to take them are the places where I feel like I've grown up the most. Like I feel like my story has developed here. Yeah. So that's kind of the route that I would go if I'm telling people about Americus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always just been kind of home to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I love that. If you had to paint Americus, what would the mural look like? How would you want people to see it?
I think I would. Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, the thing is, I don't paint people, but I would paint people if I could, and that would be what I would do. I'd paint people. I would paint the restaurants, and like I think First Friday events specifically was where I felt the most community and where I felt like, oh, this is everybody together. I feel like this speaks for the town really well, so I would probably paint something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went to school at Southland, correct?
For a while, and then I did my senior year at Crisp County.
At Crisp County, okay. And then you're in Kennesaw, coming back every now and then to kind of see the place. Is there anything that's really been significant, like as a change or something over the last maybe 10, 15 years that you've just kind of noticed that you're just really excited about?
I think I've noticed a lot of younger people. And this may be something that I just notice now because I'm seeing people in my age group that I don't know. I've been gone for a while, or that I just didn't notice it when I was a younger child. But I really enjoy seeing like younger families and the college students around. I feel like I see more of them, especially with the coffee shop being open. Yeah. I encounter that a lot because I tend to go there when I come back home. But it makes me really, really happy to see people that I don't know in Americus when I come home, because I feel like it's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you mentioned about bringing people here, some of your favorite places, have you ever got a chance to bring them to like a First Friday event or anything like that yet? Or?
I haven't gotten to, but one of my favorite things to bring people back for is St. Patrick's Day at Pat's, because I feel like that's always really fun.
Yes, Pat's place is awesome. It's light up. It's so fun because I know some people that have gone through their pictures, and I still can't find them. You know, they're just like, I'm in there. You know,
oh, I'm in there. I'm on the wall.
Yeah. It's great. I think too, even just the music scene. I mean, there's a lot more conversations about that. I know the Pearly Brown Park is being built right now, and so it seems to me that there's some energy around art a little bit more in our community. So absolutely. I'm very, very thankful for that. And but I also think that this idea of neighboring, right? We live in a digital world where there's a lot of conversations now that happen kind of just online. And I've always kind of interpreted that there's a lot of relationships that are taking place that are more transactional, which means, what can you do for me? And the moment you can't do anything for me, then I have no use for you. And so relationships can kind of feel that way of like transactions, you know, how can you benefit me? You know, what can you do as far as work is concerned? And I love the idea of what transformative or transformational relationships looks like. It's, I'm going to do something for you, despite whether you can do anything for me. That's not why I'm in this relationship. Do you feel like kind of growing up, like I said, I'm more like a 90s kid. And so we were right there before the internet, and now we're all in it. Everybody's on it. How do you see relationships? How do you see them in a small town, kind of growing outside of that? What is your view just kind of on just the natural feel of making relationships and making new friendships? Is that pretty simple? Pretty easy for you?
Yeah, I would say it definitely depends on how online you are. At least for people in my generation, I feel like I can connect to people from generations before me and generations after me, because I'm young enough, like in 2003, where I kind of had one foot in and out the door, where I wouldn't say I was like an iPad kid, but I definitely was exposed to the internet at a very young age. And I think there's so much difference just within my generation of how wrapped up in internet communication and internet relationships someone might be. And that also depends on how heavily they depend on those internet relationships, whether or not it's easy to make a connection with that person. And you see that a lot more in college and in the city as well. I think it can affect people really heavily in making relationships, because the idea of relationships on the internet encourages those transactional values versus what can I share with you because I want to share with you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested too. I mean, from your perspective and your, you know, coming from, because well, let me ask you, are you more of an introvert, extrovert? What's your personality type when it comes to that?
I would say I walk the line, which I feel like is kind of an in-between answer, but I think if you had asked me that 4 years ago, I would have said, oh, I'm totally an introvert. But now I would say I'm much more extroverted than I was. I still am a lot more open with the people that I'm closer to, but I'm way more open to making new connections now.
So what made that possible?
Stepping out of my comfort zone into a larger space.
Yeah.
I think definitely.
Yeah, you kind of have
contrast
to
of growing up in Americus.
Swim with the big fishes. You gotta, absolutely.
For sure. I think experience in college away from the small town definitely helped that a lot.
Mm-hmm. So how can we talked about this as a community, even when it comes to diversity and the history between, generations, this idea that if people could just kind of get out and kind of see the world from a different perspective, then come back in, it feels like, hey, we've got a real chance here. Mm-hmm. So coming back into the small town, knowing that it has history, what are some things that are encouraging for you that, if someone's like, hey, I want to grow in my understanding, I want to go from that introvert, like I'm afraid to take that. What are some elements that we would need to feel that?
I think I would pull from the example of the coffee shop again. I mean, I'm a little biased to be passionate about that because it's been such a huge part of me growing up. Mm-hmm. But fostering community and growing your connections and providing opportunities for people to experience your story and experience what you're passionate about and share those things. That's always going to have a positive impact on increasing vibe seems like a really silly word there, but making sure that everybody feels like they can be involved in the community. Yeah. And I think there's also the beer garden that's opening right next door. I love seeing people going, okay, I have this dream. I have this idea. I would love to share it with the community. Let's see if I can make that happen. Because more often than not, there's going to be people who want to help you create that idea. And I think that's where kind of all of the art comes back into it is if you're wanting to share your story in some creative way, that's going to be art and that's going to draw people in. Not just because it's fun or not just because, this is a new thing to go do, but because there's passion behind it and there's care behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is difficult for someone to, when you're in your places where you feel most comfortable, to take those risks. I mean, you moved, so you had to take that risk at that point. When you moved to a new location, you're just like, all right, this is it. I've just been thrown in. Where if you are finding yourself just in Americus, it's hard to say, hey, can I see outside of this? I mean, it's really, really hard to see that. So I think there are certain elements that would be helpful. And I'm just trying to figure out how do you import that without really changing necessarily the values of Americus, but just adding to.
Yeah, I think that can be a challenge because one thing about a small town, America specifically, is part of that comfy, cozy, bubble that you're in is this is what we know. This is what happens here. We do these things because that's how it's always been. So I think an openness to change is a huge step in the right direction for that. And that doesn't mean there's no openness to change around here, but I think spreading that and helping people to be more open-minded about that would be one step in the right direction. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and I had just done a TEDx talk at the college, and one of the things that as I was writing that speech, I recognized, because it was really about how the podcast has helped me to kind of shape what the values of Americus are. And one of the things that I noticed throughout America's history that is both has historical value, but also has the opportunity for thriving and change is this value of pioneering. If you look at Americus, there's many things that Americus pioneered. They actually did things that nobody else was doing. And so it's going back to our original roots of who we are, but also at the same time saying, hey, what risk do we need to be taking now? So it has that old feel to it of like, this is who we are. But who we are actually pioneers that take risks that no one else will. So how do you kind of get back to that place where you're not losing your identity, but you're also changing?
Yeah, I mean, I think cementing that idea is the first step to that, because risk is an absolutely scary word, especially to someone in a small town that doesn't change.
Yeah.
But I think whenever you hammer that back in of like, this is our history. This is what we do. This is why we're here, is to take those risks and to be that change, because change can be really intimidating until you realize it can be very positive.
Yeah.
Sometimes that may not be enough, but it is the right foundation point for getting things moving along.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now you're still in Kennesaw, right?
Yes.
And you're finishing up school?
I finished actually, graduated in May.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you hoping to stay there? Or are you kind of what's the next few steps for you?
I'm unsure. I really would love to live in Savannah for a little while.
Okay.
It's just I love a historic city, you know.
Yeah, Savannah.
If you can't tell.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm kind of waiting to figure out where the wind takes me, but
Okay.
I don't really have any specific plans. I don't know if I'll ever go too far from Georgia, but I definitely want to experience more places before I really settle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in this, talking about taking your photography, want to make that a career, right? You want to continue to grow that business. What's it like being a young entrepreneur that is into photography, trying to grow this business? How cutthroat is it out there? How are you doing?
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
It can be very scary. I think one of the hardest things is probably the imposter syndrome of it all. I got some really great advice from Andy Shivers at Modern Studios. We were just talking and he was telling me, like, if you are making money, if someone is paying you for that service, you are a professional photographer. And I think that's the hardest thing that's to wrap my head around is, what you're doing is official and it's professional and you're good at this. And doing it by myself, it's very hard to not constantly compare myself to the work of others, especially those that are very established and have been doing it for a long time or have a more formal education. So there's a huge part of that, but there's also times where I'm just like, wow, I'm 22 and I've gotten this far. So why stop now? Why not keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could just close your eyes and just say, this is where I want to be in the next 5-10 years. What does that look like for you?
I would say just consistent. The work that I do can be pretty seasonal. And right now I'm still building that clientele and building by word of mouth and working on marketing and social media. That's a lot of stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
So I would say my goal in the next couple of years would just to be, fully sure of the direction that I like, have enough momentum to say, all right, I've got my year planned out. I've got the year after that planned out. Like, I feel like I'm able to really like dig my feet in and keep going and not have to worry about things kind of fizzling out. That can be, that's the scariest part right now is just slowly building that and worry that it's not going to keep growing as it is.
Yeah. I think and what's crazy is as you get there, even with that, it's like, all right, well now, what about next year? And next year, it's just like there's just constant, like, okay, like what does that look like? So some of my friends love 5-10 year goals. Some of them are like, dude, I'm just here every day. I'm just trying to figure it out. I don't really have 5-year goals. I have 1-day goals, and so it's really good to hear how you're excited about this. I'm also interested. Is there a particular place that you would like to go and maybe do some photography, or is there some place that you would love to put your photography at some point?
I think I would really love to come back here. And
let's go, Americus. Let's go.
Maybe not permanently, but I think a really amazing project could be a lifestyle piece from here. All of the places that I feel have developed my story, and then kind of go from there. I think that would be really, really fun. I would love to display more of my art at the coffee shop. I already feel blessed that as much of my art is displayed there. I think another really, really fun potential could be to go to some of the coffee farms where we get the coffee from and do some photos there. Don't tell my dad about that yet.
Yeah, that's right.
I haven't spoken to him about it, but I think it could be amazing.
I love that. I mean, even going and getting here and seeing like the glass blowing. I mean, there's just so many cool little art areas. I'm always kind of blown away by the fact that I feel like there should be more areas in Americus where art is presented and displayed. And just go, because people will come from all over just to take pictures with particular art, and so I'm like, man, like we've got some really cool little areas that we could display some art in.
I totally agree.
So is there anything in particular, like a really cool place in Americus that you would love to see art displayed?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think this is a little more broad, but really just downtown, I think there should be more art around. There's so many places that I think could be brightened up just by adding more art that there already is. We have a lot of really pretty parks and stuff like that that could be displayed. Really, you can fit art anywhere as long as you have a purpose behind it. As long as you want to share it with someone. I think that would really bring a lot more life than there already is.
Yeah.
If we displayed art here.
Absolutely. There's one thing that I've said a few different times. Because I think about GSW so much, where I'll ask some of the college students, like, "Hey, what do you think about downtown?" They're like, "Downtown?" I'm like, "Yeah, downtown." And the restaurants and stuff. They're like, like Zaxby's and stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, you're going down Tripp Street." Like from the college, they go down Tripp Street. And I was like, man, we could do a really great job at painting like little hurricanes all the way from there, all the way up here to downtown. And it's just like, hey, come this way, come check this out. But that's artwork kind of using for purpose and things like that. That would be super fun that you see in different areas.
Yeah.
So,
I think another part about displaying art, especially here, is widening that view on what art is too. It's not just a painting, it's not just a sculpture, but it's food, it's music, it's connections. So one of my fondest memories of an event was at the old coffee shop before it moved up here when it was still by the railroad tracks. There was this really beautiful area where they would have live music. And I think that's something that if we prioritize that, that's something that a lot of people in the community really, really value is music. And that can bring a lot of people together, especially young people.
Yeah. And it's crazy because you've got, again, this town's 15,000 people, and you have 2 colleges that, total around somewhere between 5,000 students. So there's a lot of potential for to be a place where people will come and just see what's available to us. And so, well, let's talk a little bit even about, we're talking about current kind of Americus, about kind of where you are as well. Would love for you to come back and, lead some of this. That will be awesome. Just lead the charge. Just go for it. Right. And I think too, saying this is helpful that because there are towns, especially small towns, that feel like they kind of hinder creativity. And so that's also the potential, right? We've got to make sure that we're bought into that.
Right.
And so what are some ways that we as a community can continue to be bought into things like creativity and art?
Well, I mentioned it already, but I think one of the huge things is broadening our perspective on what art can be. I think everybody has the potential to create meaningful art. And a lot of people think that they can't because they've been told a small view of what art can be. So I think that's a huge, huge step of something that we can do. I think another thing would be just encouraging people to create it. Once you've got that bigger idea of, it's a lot more subjective than it seems, challenge people to that. Encourage people to do that. Ask people to, there's so many connections, not just an individual person too. It could be business to business, or it could be church to church. There's a lot of different communities where that art and that growth can be encouraged really heavily. Yeah.
So you're telling me that we should start on Americus Got Talent. That's what you're telling me.
Yes. And we have to specifically call it that.
Yes. Americus Got Talent. Right. And and just watching people get together and be able to express some of those things, like finding more opportunities. I do think that, sports obviously is a big thing in most small towns, trying to get to the next level, trying to get, whether it's a college education or, try to get a strong career. But art, again, is a really great opportunity, whether it's through music and things like that we have an opportunity here in our community, and it's already in us. That's what's so crazy. It's just trying to recognize, man, this is something that we can bring value to more than just Americus. We can actually share it with the world. I
think that was one of the biggest things for me growing up here and then moving on and doing what I'm doing now. Is it took me a long time to realize and really assure myself that, creating can be more than just a hobby, or it can be more than just a passion. But if you have a story to tell and you have passion behind that, it can be so much more fulfilling than that. And as long as you're willing to put in some work and you want to tell your story, there's somebody who absolutely wants to listen. And that the joy that you get from creating that art can also be shared in other people, and it can be found in other people that way.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always curious too, because people that grew up in big cities, they don't know about small town life. What's something about small towns that are beneficial that maybe big city folks miss out on?
It's the everybody knows everybody. It's the you're talking to someone and you didn't realize that they babysat you when you were 5. You know, it's like there anywhere I go in Americus, there's always going to be someone that's in my corner. And if I need anything, or if I have a question, or if I'm looking for support or looking for a connection, it's, oh, I know somebody, or oh, I am that somebody, or I know someone who knows someone. And it can be so much more spread out in a big city, but here it really is a community. I would say it's such a strong community that it's more of a family than anything else. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, it's been incredible for me just to be here for 3 years and feel as if people are saying, hey, how do we help? How do we help you get kind of where you want to go? It's been very, very encouraging for me. And we need more of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people can get put off from small towns because it feels like already such a tight-knit community that they don't want to accept new people in it. But I don't feel that Americus is that way. I think everyone here is always welcoming new people in and saying, hey, like, come join our community, come be part of this, instead of you got to earn that first. It's not. It's open arms here, which I think is really, really special.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so we're kind of talking again about Americus right now. What are some things that we can be encouraged by, hopefully in the next, again, planning out 5 years, 10 years, talking about vision, kind of where's Americus going? Where do you see Americus going right now?
Interesting. I think Americus could really go anywhere. It's really hard to say just because I do feel that I'm a little more separated from it than I once was, but I see a lot of really great potential of, there are such strong community ties here, and there are so many people that truly want to grow Americus, that I think as long as people really put their passion to work, then it can absolutely grow. It can create bigger waves in other communities of, look what Americus is doing. Look at all of these programs that they have. Look at how their community is growing. Look at all these events they're fostering and that sort of thing. I think if you really work to showcase, hey, people can really thrive here, then you're going to bring in more people who want to experience that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I always like to ask kind of 3 just kind of general questions, and you can try all 3, or you can just answer 1 or 2. But I always try to ask it in kind of categories in order to see that reality take place over the next 5-10 years. What are some things that we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? And what's one thing that we can never stop doing in order to continue to grow and thrive?
One thing that I think we need to start doing to continue to thrive is really focus on empathy. A lot of people have a lot of complicated lives, way more complicated than we think. And it's, I think, common, especially in small towns, to be like, that's none of my business. That's someone else's life. But I think we're all a lot more similar than we think we are. And we need to start putting ourselves in those people's shoes of, what's going on for them right now? How are things impacting this person? And is that the same way that it could be impacting me? What we need to stop doing is saying, oh, because that doesn't impact me, it's not my problem. If something's impacting someone in your community, that's you too. It's your community. So I think one thing we can't stop doing is continuing to do our best to help other people grow, support other people in Americus and outside of that. I think it's really, really important that we, not just protect ourselves, not just protect our own, but really make sure that we're doing as much as we can to help other people grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things about small towns that has the potential of what we're talking about right now with words like empathy, is because it's not as mainstream fast as some place like Atlanta, where everything's just going 100 miles an hour and everyone's trying to get to the place the fastest. You come to a small town and things are a little bit slower. And so you get a chance to know people because of the pace is just a little bit slower. And I think empathy happens when we're not hurried all the time.
Right.
Where I can actually just be present and hear your story because I'm going slow. But that's hard in a world that says you have to be faster and faster and faster.
Right.
If you're meeting the quota for 3 months, then we're going to make the quota higher.
Right.
Instead of going, hey, congratulations, everybody, you're doing great. We should do more.
Yeah.
So how do you fight that pace, knowing that we live in a world that says keep going as fast as you can?
I would say celebrate the goals you have reached. There's always going to be someone or something pushing you to, all right, new goal, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, increase what we're doing now. But you stop and celebrate those small victories because they really, really, really matter. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be some larger challenge, some larger looming thing that's over you. Of this is what it could have been, or this is what could be. But I think you really have to accept the reality of right now and say, all right, what were the wins? Where do we go from there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious too, when you moved to Kennesaw, I mean, again, you coming from a small town, you're just asking everyone probably a few different questions because that's what you do in small towns. And people were like, whoa, Sam, who do you,
right.
Why are you asking so many questions? You're like, because this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but I think people are trying to get back to that place where there's the conversations don't feel like they're being like it's an interrogation, but it's actually trying to build relationship. And so how would you encourage people that are meeting people for the first time, whether it's in a small town or in a new town or whatever, again, because, we're talking about neighboring. What are some things that have been helpful for you, maybe as someone who's received a new relationship or new friendship, that you've been like, man, I'm really glad that that's how that started. It helped me to put kind of more trust and an opportunity in that relationship.
I would say just a certain level of openness, or like really, I talk a lot about stories and storytelling. I think that's a really, really important part of building new relationships and being open to new relationships. Is everyone's got a story to tell. You're most likely meeting everyone you meet for a reason. And if you feel like a connection to or a pull to start a relationship with someone, there's probably going to be a reason for that. And as long as you're going into any kind of relationship or conversation with good intentions, or the intention to hear rather than to take or, reap benefits or something like that, just genuinely with the intention to connect, then that's going to be the most positive thing there. Yeah,
absolutely. I know one of the things that I try to do, especially with new relationships, because I'm more of a left brain kind of, thinking through processes and so, in fact, one of the reasons why I do things like the podcast, or even learn how to be like a better counselor even, is I was given a book by someone about listening. It was the first time like we ever got a chance to talk. He said, hey, I want to give you a gift. And I was like, sweet. And he handed me a book on how to actually listen.
Are you sure this wasn't my dad?
No. No. And I was like so blown away. I was really offended. I was like, dude, I feel like I listen all the time, But he gave me this book, and then I read it, and it really challenged me. And I came to him probably 6 months later after I, was looked at him, and finally got the courage to go back up to him and say, hey, thank you so much for investing that into me. Is trying to figure out kind of how people are presenting themselves so that you can join into that story, even though you've met them for the first time. And so, trying to recognize what people are wearing, and because that's personal to them, they're expressing something. And so it's like, hey, I really, really like your watch. If it's a guy and I'm like, man, where'd that watch come from? Obviously they want to talk about it. They put it on. They want that to be expressed. So you start conversations by acknowledging some sense of commonality or interest or wonder. And that really brings people in to say, okay, well, yeah, this is somebody I feel like I could talk to because they care about what I care about. Right.
Right.
So I think little tools like that, I think, are super helpful in new conversations. And again, just asking just really good questions, which again, it's an art, right?
Yeah.
Questions are an art. I don't even know how good I'm doing with my questions. But I would say questions are an art. So
I would agree very much.
So in conversations, let's talk a little bit about conversations and being kind of an artwork. What have been really beneficial conversations that you've had, probably over the last, few years, just kind of meeting new people?
I would say the sharing of knowledge. When I'm talking to someone new, I want to learn more about, their interests or specific, like, what are you passionate about? Why are you choosing the path that you're choosing? Because obviously something there has inspired you. So that's usually one of my go-tos of, like, if I want to deepen a connection with this person and I want to have a good conversation with them, I want to make sure that it's centered on something that we both find interesting. And, if you're always wanting to learn, there's someone that's going to want to share that knowledge with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, today is the day that you want to be a storyteller. I mean, it's been really good. I really, really love it. It's one of the reasons why I do the podcast is I love getting to hear people's stories, getting to hear your story. And so I'm hoping that we, again, capture Americus, the progression of Americus, the joys of Americus, the heart of Americus. Because the reality is that the reason why we love Americus so much is because the values that are here, we just want more people to experience those values. Right. But there's a tension, because when you're thinking with that, then you're having to think not really outside the box, but just kind of bringing in new people. And that is very, very frightening. And so, trying to find that balance will be very, very important for our community.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
So I'm always like, that's one of the reasons why I ask, like, where do you see ourselves in 5 years? Because I think for that, it could be, well, I want to see more restaurants. I want to see more of this, more of that. Then I can say, well, what would it take to get there? Which is really exciting. So, something as far as you move into a new town, a small town, you're from a small town, what are some things that people can learn from just the very basics of, I just moved into this home, to build neighboring in communities?
I would say, the things that you enjoy and the things that you're passionate about, there's probably someone else that also enjoys those things. So finding a connection based on what you like to do in your free time, or, people who share similar interests as you, there's going to be those people, and sometimes it's going to take you to start that group. And if there's something that you can host or something that you can plan that, really helps you start to connect to people, or find an event that's already happening that follows those things, would be my advice.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. I know when we moved in here, we try to do a really good job at saying, okay, we don't know all of our neighbors just yet. But we try to make little decisions, even like with our pets, we're trying to we don't want to be the neighbor that has the bad pets, try to figure these things out. Right. We want to be neighbors that people are like, oh, I'm so glad that you're my neighbor, because just the small things that we're paying attention to that we want to help people feel safe around us, so I love that. And I would not do good in a big city, I don't think. I
didn't think so either. So
really?
You never know. You never know.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think one of the things too about photography is that it is a very vulnerable place for a lot of people. It's a very special moment. What have you learned about people through just seeing through a lens?
One of the things that I have learned is that people are a lot more uncomfortable in front of that lens than they think they're going to be. And a lot of times it's easier to capture someone's moment or capture someone's story if they forget that lens is there. So one of the things that I always warn people about is, hey, I'm going to make this really, really awkward. But the harder it is, the first 10, 15 minutes of this, then the easier it's going to be the rest of the time. And a lot of times whenever I'm taking photos of a couple specifically is where I see it the most, is once they start to kind of sit with that, and I'm going to say, okay, do this really silly thing. I'm going to make you a little bit uncomfortable here. But then if they're able to connect with someone else in that environment, like their partner, all of that awkwardness, all of that tension just melts right away.
Yeah. You're fine.
But, I see a lot of people searching for connection because of that tension. And as soon as they find it, whether that's in their environment, whether that's in the milestone that they're celebrating in that moment where you can focus more on that, or whether that's a person that's there with them, as soon as the focus lands on that, the tension is gone.
Yeah. And it is important. I mean, you want to capture moments. You want to, understand people's stories and let people express their stories. So I think that we are in a really, really amazing place, even though there's a lot of stories that are being captured that people don't necessarily, I mean, everybody's on now. I mean, everything's being viewed, you know, I even know people that have like, you know, try to get a job and someone will look at their Facebook and be like, I'm not going to hire you. I mean, it's just because everything's out there now. And so, and I even think about storytelling, you know, in places like Americus, where if we can get better at communicating what we're trying to accomplish, it helps build a better story for Americus so that people that are trying to engage with what's happening. Like, so for example, we talked about, you know, there's a lot of the elections that are going on, and there just seems to be some gaps in communication when it comes to the city and just everyday citizens.
Absolutely.
So what are citizens doing? Well, they're getting on Facebook and they're complaining because the story is not clear. So we need to get better at telling the story, even if it's not as good as we hope that it is right now.
Yep.
At least it's clear. So how would you encourage us as a community to continue to tell a story? What are the elements of telling a good story?
I would say find that story's roots, because like you're talking about, a huge impact on clear communication and clear storytelling has been the internet and this extended lightning speed word of mouth. And I would say, like, do some research, find out where that's coming from, because if someone's going to share something, it's going to come from their heart, you know? And I think a lot of times the disconnect is when we either expect that people are disingenuous because of the internet, or we expect that people are being super, super, super honest because of the internet.
Yeah.
And there's a huge extreme on both of those sides. So we got to find somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, absolutely. and just get out. Like you said, First Fridays, these kind of things, you know, if you haven't done something in this community, or if you haven't even gone to the visitor center, and just go and meet, you know, the people that are in the departments of the city and say, hey, kind of what's going on? You know, they're always really, really glad to see me, or at least they smile when they see me, you know, K1 and them. And, you know, I mean, they're trying to express through our community what's happening. And so if you have questions, you should be able to go and say, hey, I want to kind of know for myself, where are we as a community? And we hope to be a part of that in some way as well, to continue to share not just good, positive stories, but stories that are true, impactful to our community, to say, hey, this is a place where you can go to hear what's going on in the community. Yeah,
I think asking questions is super important for that growth and that communication and building that, telling your story and telling your city's story, getting people involved. Questions are super important, and asking questions, especially about where we are as a community and how we can improve, may not always be the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
You know, there might be some hard conversations there about what are things that are holding us back that we're really holding on to. But I think that the ends really justify the means there, because even if you're having to ask hard questions with really hard answers, eventually those things are going to be really, really important.
Yeah. And even going back to what you said about being behind the lens, is you have to have that sense of being uncomfortable. Can we just all be uncomfortable for like 10-15 minutes?
It's okay to be uncomfortable.
And then once we get past that, we can actually, you know, continue to take a step forward. And it's tough. I mean, it really is, because again, we're talking about vulnerability. You know, we're saying, man, someone's looking at me. But we've got to get to a place where we can grow. And part of that is just being vulnerable. Yeah.
I think vulnerability and being uncomfortable really go hand in hand. I've learned that a lot from taking photos of people, is that, you know, if you want the best story told, you have to be really, truly, completely yourself. And that's really hard to do if you're unsure about your surroundings, or unsure of the person who you're telling that story to. So sometimes you have to really sit with that discomfort, and you have to really open yourself up to telling a story if you want it to be heard the way that you're trying to tell it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. One more question before we get to our what we call rapid fire questions. If someone is thinking about photography or artwork or some form, you know this really, really well, that it takes time, right? I mean, your first photo shoot is probably not going to be your best, right? And so what are some forms of encouragement could you give someone who is a young entrepreneur that wants to do it, and maybe they've been doing it for even a year or 2 years, and they just feel like they really love it, but it's not
what they see on the internet, where everyone's just blowing up and becoming viral. What will you encourage them to do?
It will probably never be what it seems like on the internet, at least in my experience so far. And what I would say is just really dig in your heels. Take pictures of everything. There's always going to be a story to tell. There's always going to be someone who has a moment that they need captured, or maybe they don't even realize it and you end up capturing that moment for them. I can't tell you how many times in the last 10 months of me getting this started that I've said out loud to people that I'm with, wow, I wish I brought my camera. Bring it everywhere.
Yeah.
Capture everything, because sometimes you'll capture stuff that you didn't even realize was going to be important or beautiful, and it just happens that way. So capitalize on those natural moments. Not everything is going to be perfect and planned all the time. It's not always going to work really well, but if you, use every single moment that you can to your advantage there, and really just truly try to capture as much as you can, you will benefit from that, and it will help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're just going to constantly get better and better over time.
Yeah.
And your passion needs to drive that, because I've seen most of the stories of the people that blow up on the internet. They've been doing it for 10, 15 years before it ever. And if you watch what they did 10 years ago, you're just like, why would they be doing that?
Right.
That's horrible. But they just kept getting better and better and better in their craft, right?
Definitely.
And so, just continue to get better, continue to get around people that are excited about the things that you're excited about, keep pushing forward. And even in small town Americus, you can have the next Sam Pinnell that comes up, right? And wants to come back, maybe do a little bit in our hometown.
Yeah, to throw a little extra advice in there, I would say always tell people what you're doing. I think is super, super important. Anytime you're able to talk about what you do, talk about it. If it's, something that you're really passionate about, you're always going to want to tell people. I sneak into as many conversations as I can where it comes up. Yeah, I am a photographer, and telling people that out loud and reinforcing that, it's not only going to help you get your name out there, it's going to reinforce it with yourself.
Yeah.
Telling people that really makes me sit back and think, wow, I actually am. I'm doing this. It makes me feel more confident about what I'm doing, and it helps me grow my community, my connections with people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, do you have any? Do you have a website? You got any merch? What are you doing?
I do have a website, samgracesnaps.com. You can find me on Instagram at samgracesnaps as well, and on Facebook. I have some cute little koozies with my name on them. I don't sell them, but you can just let me know if you want one, and I'm happy to give it to you.
I love it. I love it. What's funny is I tried to pitch this to a couple people in the first few podcasts that I did, and nobody bought in. So I stopped doing it. But I always ask them, what are Americus people called? because I come from Albany, so you're an Albanian. I was like, what are Americus people called? And, no one's like, I don't know. I don't think we have anything. So I said, what about an Americusian? And so when you said koozie, I was like, yeah, Americusian,
I was actually thinking about that when we started the podcast, and you were asking me who are you? And I was going to say I'm from Americus. And I was thinking, wow, we don't have a word for us, do we? So yeah, maybe we need to settle on one.
I know it's a hard sell.
Throw Americusian in the hat,
Yeah, why not? In fact, that's how I heard one of the stories of how Americus was chosen as the name is one story. There's three, but one story is that was thrown in a hat, and it, that's what came out. So maybe just throw Americusian in the hat. So I love it. All right.
I'll take it up with everyone else.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Help me out here. That's a good sell. All right. So a couple quick rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
All right. So is there another favorite? You've already told me about the cafe. Is there another favorite hidden gem in Americus?
Ooh, I would say, that's a good question. Reese Park is really beautiful. I love walking at Reese Park. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a really nice little quiet area. Really anything historic in the town is super fun to go and visit.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Because we're talking about the cafe, what's your coffee order? What do you get?
I am a cappuccino girly. I don't put any sweeteners. I don't do anything like that. Sometimes I'll get a little cinnamon on there, but always a cappuccino. And Cafe Cappuccino is great about it. Always, my judge of a coffee shop is how good is their cappuccino. And if I ask for a cappuccino, are they going to give me a latte? And a lot of times they do.
Yeah.
But when I get a cappuccino, I know it's good.
That's
So,
awesome. I wish I knew what that meant. I ask him all the time, like, what am I supposed to order? He tells me, and then he gives me all the descriptions, and then it just goes, as soon as he starts talking, I'm just like, what? I can't remember. So is a latte, is that a lot of milk, or is that not a lot of milk? I don't know. I can't remember. So yeah, I have to go in. I've been told if you want to go in and try to sound, a little coffee guy, is I could go in there and ask for a pour over.
True.
And that sounds like that's
that
pretty
sounds
cool,
fancy,
right?
Sounds fancy.
Okay, all right.
I do like a pour over. I make coffee at home, I go for the pour over rather than the automatic pot because I think the flavor is really great. So
yeah. That's just so I have pour overs. They're great, but I don't know how it
go
works.
for a cappuccino next time.
Yeah. All right. Dream photo location anywhere in the world.
Ooh. I really want to do a shoot in the redwoods one day. The really tall trees.
Okay.
I think that would be really amazing.
Massive.
Huge, yeah.
Massive. Yeah. I mean, if you're just seeing the tree, but without any person or anything, you just think they're a normal tree. I mean,
and that's the fun part about it is the contrast, the size.
Yeah.
I think they're gorgeous. So.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We talked about moments, making moments. Is there a moment this year that made you super grateful?
My first wedding shoot. I think I was hearing from people. They were coming up to me and asking questions or just kind of interacting with people. And they're like, wow, it doesn't really seem like it's your first time. And that was huge for me. Just hearing that, I was doing a job that looked and felt professional to more than just me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What about seasons? I mean, you're a photographer, right? What season? Is there a particular season that you love to shoot?
I love fall. I think the colors are great. That's the best time to be outside. I'm a big fall girl just in general. So I think that's why I'm a little bit more biased to it. But I think you can get some really, really gorgeous settings with the fall season.
Yeah, nice. And then what do you do to relax? Are you binge watching anything? Are you doing any of that stuff? Or do you?
I usually do fiber arts ish in general. I picked up crochet a few years ago. I love doing that. It helps me get my screen time down a bit.
Nice.
Recently taken up quilting.
Okay.
Started making quilts and that's really fun. I love to upcycle fabrics or fibers any way that I can. So always creating.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. My daughter started doing the pot holders. Mm-hmm. So she's got this little thing that I don't know how she remembers all of it because she's like 9 years old and she's like she's making pot holders now and she wants to sell them to everybody. She loves it. So yeah,
little entrepreneur. I love it.
I know, right? She's just like 3 for 5. I'm like, all right, baby, come on now. All right, last one. I have like 10 of them, so I'm like, which one do I want to pick?
Choices.
Yes, choices. Okay. If you had to delete all but 3 apps on your phone.
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. Okay, let me think. All but 3 apps. I'll keep my messages, obviously. Don't call me, text me. I don't like calls. I like to text. So messages definitely. I would keep my calendar because I will forget everything if I don't have my calendar. Mm-hmm. And then this is a lot of pressure. Narrowing it down to 3.
You're deciding your fate right now.
I know. I'll go Pinterest. I'll keep Pinterest. If there's one social media I could keep, I would say Pinterest before they put a lot of ads on it. If I could go back to that, if I can keep my ad blocker, then Pinterest for sure.
Nice. Okay. Since you're such a message person, do you do all the emojis and likes and stuff like that? Do you try to put it all together, or you just straightforward?
I don't like to go too heavy on the emojis. I like the emoticons, like put a colon and a parentheses type thing. That's more real to me. But I do have a couple emojis that are like my go-tos, but I try not to load them in there too heavy.
I started doing the stickers.
Those are nice.
Stickers with my pictures, and I'll find a funny picture of my wife or Jess or something like that, and I'll just put the sticker on everything. It's so fun. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, talking a little bit about your story, about Americus, small town living, being in Kennesaw, big city, all the great things there that are happening, and just for your hope, your love for Americus. I agree with you. I think there's so much that Americus is going to continue to bloom in. And I think that you're right, that we need to become more and more aware and just receive like, hey, this is good. Let's move forward. Let's get a little vulnerable. I know it's going to be tough, but if we're all in it and we just do it for 10 minutes, everything will be fine. And so the future of Americus is bright. I love it. Shining city on a hill. Let's do that. Let's be bright. So thank you so much for coming in, and I hope to see more of your artwork. In Americus. That would be really, really awesome. So if you haven't seen Sam's artwork, you can go into the cafe, Campesino, in the little back area. Some really cool stuff there. Is there any other place in town?
So just the murals in Cafe Campesino are my stuff in public areas. I've got the big hand on the wall, and then the back room. I did both of the murals in there. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely go check it out. And if you need a mural done, let me know. I'm happy to come do it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So, and you can get in contact with her again through Sam's Grace Snaps.
Yes. samgracesnaps.com is my website. Same thing for my Instagram is Sam Grace Snaps. Lowercase, no spaces, no punctuation. Real easy, straightforward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on for my podcast debut. Yeah. It's been so much fun.
That's great. All right. That's great.